Digital scarcity versus monetary debasement. The real inflation hedge has arrived. Flint West reporting. They told you to watch CPI, to fear the grocery aisle, to believe that inflation lives in the price of bread and butter. But that was the cover story. Because the real theft, it didn't happen at the checkout counter. It happened in the shadows, behind the vaulted doors of the central bank. They printed and printed. And when the purchasing power slipped through your fingers, they pointed to oil prices, to pandemics, to war. Anything but the balance sheet. See, here's the thing. Inflation isn't the smoke, it's the fire. And that fire starts when money stops being scarce. Which brings us to Bitcoin. They call it volatile. They call it speculative, but maybe they're just describing something they don't understand. Because Bitcoin isn't trying to track CPI. It's not pegged to eggs or gasoline. It's tracking the one thing that actually matters: monetary debasement. M2 money supply, the river of liquidity that runs through every global asset. Bitcoin's not watching the price of milk, it's watching the flow of money itself. And guess what? It's responding faster, sharper, and more faithfully than gold. Let me show you something. We dug into 5 key monetary regimes, QE, QT, the big swings, and we asked one question. Who reacts better to monetary expansion, Bitcoin or gold? All right, let's pause here and walk through what you're looking at. This is a simple correlation chart. It tells us how closely two things move together. On one side, we've got Bitcoin and the money supply, and on the other, gold and the money supply. Now, by money supply, we mean M2. That's the broad measure economists use to track how much money is sloshing around in the system: cash, checking, savings, and near money assets. This chart covers 5 major periods of central bank policy. 3 of those periods are when the Fed was adding liquidity, what we call quantitative easing. And 2 of them are when the Fed was trying to pull that liquidity back, quantitative tightening. Let's walk through the story one row at a time. First up, during the first round of quantitative easing from 2008 to 2010, Bitcoin was brand new. It had just launched, it wasn't liquid, and no one really understood it yet. So it showed a negative correlation with the money supply, minus 0.30. That means it didn't move with M2 at all. Gold didn't show much either, only minus 0.10. Next, during the third round of easing, from 2012 to 2014, Bitcoin was still volatile and mostly speculative. It had a small negative correlation with M2, about minus 0.16. Gold showed a little more alignment here, positive 0.23. But now we fast forward to the real test, the COVID money printing era, from 2020 to 2021. This is when the Federal Reserve expanded the money supply by over 25%, and Bitcoin surged from around $9,000 to nearly $70,000. The correlation between Bitcoin and M2 jumped to 0.33. That's a meaningful positive relationship. Gold rose too, but more slowly. Its correlation with M2 was just 0.16. Now let's look at what happened when the Fed tried to tighten. During the first round of quantitative tightening in 2018 and 2019, gold basically flatlined. It had no correlation with M2, 0. Bitcoin, on the other hand, still had a weak positive correlation of 0.19. And finally, during the most recent tightening phase from 2022 through 2023, this is where the story gets really interesting. Even though the Fed said it was tightening, markets started to expect more easing down the road. Bitcoin responded. Its correlation with M2 strengthened all the way to 0.35. Gold? Still asleep at the wheel. Its correlation was barely above 0, just 0.02. So here's what the numbers tell us. Bitcoin is maturing. It's now showing a real and growing sensitivity to liquidity, to the actual expansion or contraction of the money supply. Gold still plays a role, but it's slower. It doesn't move as clearly or as quickly. The stronger the monetary distortion, the clearer the Bitcoin signal becomes. Why? Because when markets panic, they sell what's liquid. And Bitcoin is liquid. But once the panic passes, the smart money comes crawling back, refilling the vault, one sat at a time. Here's the punchline. Bitcoin doesn't hedge against prices. It hedges against policy, against the slow bleed of debasement, against the backdoor tax you never voted for. Gold still shines. It's been doing it for 5,000 years. But it's slow, it's political, and it doesn't run on weekends. Bitcoin? It's the scarcity hedge of the digital age. It's fast, fluid, global, and it never sleeps. So the next time someone tells you inflation is 3.4% and falling, ask them what M2 is doing. Ask them what the Fed's balance sheet looks like. Ask them if their hedge still works in real time. Because if the dollar's losing value every time someone hits Control P, you don't want a legacy safe. You want an algorithmic lifeboat. And folks, the real inflation hedge has arrived. Flint West, signing off from the edge of monetary reality. See you on the next frontier.